Today we have a breathtaking story that will move you. Ixchel Montemayor, after surviving a devastating accident, had a near-death experience that led him to a surprising revelation about the future of our planet. The story he shares today is not just about life after death, but about the mission we all have here on Earth. Get ready for a journey that will leave your jaw dropping. And before we dive into this impactful story, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell so you don't miss any details. Hello, my name is Ixchel Montemayor. I'm 35 years old and live in El Paso, Texas. I'm a single father to a lovely little girl called Sophia. I work as a civil engineer at a local construction company. My life has always been quite ordinary, at least until the day everything changed. I've never been a particularly religious or spiritual person. I went to church from time to time, more out of family tradition than out of my own conviction. I've always been more connected to practical things, logical and scientific explanations for everything. I lost my wife, Gabriela, a few years ago in a car accident. Since then, it's been just me and Sophia. The loss of Gabriela made me a little skeptical about the idea of life after death or anything like that. I just couldn't believe there was anything beyond this life. For me, when it was over, it was over. Full stop. But that all changed one Saturday afternoon about 6 months ago. That was when I had an experience that completely transformed my worldview, my understanding of life and death. It was a near-death experience, or NDE, as experts call it. It's not easy to talk about this. In fact, this is the first time I'm telling this story in detail to anyone outside of my family. Not because I don't want to share it, but because it's something so deep, so personal, and, to be honest, so hard to explain, that I just didn't know how to approach the subject. But I feel like the time has come to tell my story. Not to convince anyone of anything, nor to say that I have all the answers. Far from it. I'm just here to share what happened to me, what I saw and felt, and how it changed my life. If it can bring comfort, hope, or a new perspective to someone, it will have been worth it. So I'm going to tell you about the day I almost died and what happened after. I will try to be as clear and honest as possible, even when things seem strange or difficult to explain. I just ask that you listen with an open mind. I'm not here to convert anyone, just to share my experience. This is the story of how I, an ordinary man, father and engineer, got a glimpse of what might exist beyond this life. It's the story of how I died for a few minutes and came back to tell it. It's the story of how my life changed forever on a seemingly ordinary Saturday afternoon. It was a Saturday afternoon like any other. The El Paso sun was shining as always, and I had just visited a friend. I was heading home on my motorbike, looking forward to seeing Sophia. The hot desert wind hit my face as I rode, and I felt good, free. You know that feeling that everything is right in the world, even if for a brief moment? That's how I felt. I was thinking about 1,000 things at the same time. The work, the bills to pay, the projects I needed to finish. But mostly I was thinking about Sophia. She had a dance recital the following week and was super excited. I smiled just imagining her dancing on stage. Traffic was calm at that time. I was going at a moderate speed, nothing crazy. I have always been a careful motorcyclist, especially since Sophia was born. I reached an intersection and the light turned green for me. I started to cross as I had done thousands of times before. That's when it happened. In the blink of an eye, I saw a car coming from the right at high speed. The driver had run the red light. There was no time to react, to divert, to do anything at all. 1 second I was crossing the intersection, the next the car was on top of me. The impact was violent. I remember hearing the deafening sound of the crash, feeling my body being thrown from the bike. It was as if time had slowed down. I could see the blue sky swirling above me as I flew through the air. I remember thinking, is this how I die? Is this how I leave Sophia alone? Then came the pain. A pain so intense, so overwhelming that it is difficult to even describe. I felt my body hit the asphalt. Roll, stop. I heard distant screams, horns. Everything seemed to be happening very far away. The pain was unbearable. I couldn't move. He could taste blood in his mouth. My vision was blurry, but I could see people approaching, hear alarmed voices. Someone shouted to call an ambulance. I wanted to scream, ask for help, say that I had a daughter waiting for me at home. But he couldn't speak. I couldn't move. I felt my consciousness slipping away. The last thought I had before everything went dark was, "Sophia, I'm sorry. Daddy loves you." And then, darkness. A deep, complete darkness. For a moment, there was nothing. No pain, no fear, no thoughts. Just emptiness. But it was at that moment, in that space between life and death, that something extraordinary began to happen. Something that would change my life forever. Suddenly, the darkness began to dissipate. It was like waking up from a deep dream, but unlike anything I had ever experienced. At first, I was confused. Where was I? What had happened? The pain was completely gone, which was strange considering the violent accident I had just been in. Then I realized something even stranger. I could see my own body down there in the street. It was as if I were floating above the scene of the accident. I saw paramedics arriving, moving frantically around my limp body. I saw people around, some crying, others with cell phones in their hands, probably calling emergency services. It was a surreal feeling. I should be panicking, right? But it wasn't. In fact, I felt a calm that I had never experienced before. It was as if all the worries, fears, and anxieties had simply evaporated. As I watched the scene below, I started to notice something around me. It was a light, but not an ordinary light. It was a blue light, intense but not dazzling. It was welcoming, as if it were calling me. I felt a heat emanating from her, not a physical heat, but something that warmed well, I didn't really know what it was at that moment. My soul, perhaps. The light began to envelop me, and I felt drawn to it. It wasn't a physical attraction. It was more like she was gently inviting me. And then, I heard a voice. It wasn't a voice I recognized, but somehow it felt familiar, comfortable. "Ixchel," the voice said softly. "Don't be afraid. You're hurt, but you're safe now. Come with me." I wanted to respond, to ask questions, but I found I didn't need to talk. My thoughts seemed to be enough. "Who are you?" I thought. "Where am I?" The voice replied gently. "Everything will become clear soon. Now, it's time to leave your world behind for a moment. There is something you need to see." I hesitated for a moment. I looked back at the scene of the accident, at my body being loaded into an ambulance. I thought about Sophia, about how she would be if I didn't come back. But something inside me knew this wasn't a final goodbye. It was a journey, one I needed to take, so I gave myself to the light. I felt like I was being lifted upward, away from Earth, away from time, away from everything I knew. The accident scene got smaller and smaller until it disappeared completely. As I climbed higher, I began to see things that I cannot adequately describe with words. Colors that don't exist on Earth, shapes that defy logic, a beauty that transcends anything I've ever seen. And all this time I felt a deep peace, an unconditional love surrounding me. It was as if, for the first time in my life, I was truly at home. As the blue light guided me upward, I began to notice a change in the environment around me. The vastness of the space I was crossing began to take shape, and suddenly, I saw something in front of me that left me amazed. A staircase. But it was no ordinary staircase. It was made of stones that appeared to be pure gold, each step shining with a light of its own. The staircase stretched out in front of me, seemingly endless. Each step seemed to emanate a sense of peace and comfort. It was as if each step on that ladder was an invitation to leave all the worries and fears of earthly life behind. Without hesitation, I started to climb. It was an incredible feeling. Every step I took made me feel lighter, more at peace. There was no tiredness. There was no effort. It was like I was floating from one step to the next. As I climbed, the scenery around me continued to change. I saw flowers of indescribable beauty, colors I didn't even know existed. Butterflies with bright wings flew around me, leaving trails of light in the air. I heard soft music, a melody that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at the same time. At one point, I noticed a crystal-clear stream running parallel to the stairs. The water was surprisingly clear, and I could see small goldfish swimming upstream, their scales reflecting the light in an almost magical way. As I climbed, I started to have flashes of memories from my life, but these were no ordinary memories. They were moments of kindness, of love, of connection with other people. I saw the day Sophia was born, the look of love in Gabriella's eyes. I saw moments when I helped people, even if in small gestures. It was as if the latter was showing me the true value of my life, not in achievements or possessions, but in moments of love and compassion. I don't know how long I went up. Time seemed to have no meaning in that place. It could have been minutes or years. But finally, I reached the top of the stairs. What I saw then left me speechless. Before me stretched a scene of indescribable beauty. Green fields stretched as far as the eye could see, dotted with flowers of all colors. Majestic trees swayed gently, their leaves appearing to be made of gold and silver. In the distance, I saw snow-capped mountains, their peaks touching a sky so deep blue it seemed almost unreal. And there, in the middle of this paradise, I saw a building. It was an enormous building made of what appeared to be pure white marble. The building shone with its own light, so intense that it seemed to repel any shadow. It was majestic, imposing, but at the same time welcoming. A golden bridge stretched from the top of the stairs to the building's entrance. As I looked at that scene, I felt an emotion so deep, so overwhelming, that I could barely breathe. It was a mixture of reverence, joy, and a feeling of finally being home. It was then that I heard that gentle voice again. "Welcome, Ixchel. You have arrived." I crossed the golden bridge toward the white building, my heart racing with a mix of emotions I could barely comprehend. As I got closer, the music I heard became clearer, sharper. It was a melody I had never heard before, but it somehow felt familiar, as if it had been made especially for me. When I reached the entrance of the building, the doors opened by themselves. A warm, welcoming light came from within, enveloping me. I took a step inside and was amazed at what I saw. The interior was vast, much larger than seemed possible from the outside. The ceiling was so high that it seemed to merge with the sky. The walls seemed to be made of pure light, gently changing color. But what really caught my attention were the people, or rather, the souls. Because I knew somehow that's what they were. Souls of people I've known and loved throughout my life. And then, I saw them. My father, who had passed away when I was a teenager. My grandmother, who always had a smile and a hug for me. My Uncle Carlos, who taught me how to ride a bike. They were all there, waiting for me. They looked different, younger, more vibrant, as if they had been restored to the best version of themselves. Their faces glowed with a happiness I had never seen before. My father was the first to approach. He opened his arms, and without hesitation, I ran to hug him. It was a hug that seemed to last an eternity. I felt all the love, all the affection that I couldn't share with him in the last years of my earthly life. "My son," he said, his voice full of emotion. "Good to see you, but it's not your time yet." These words took me by surprise. "What do you mean, Dad? What do you mean it's not my time?" My grandmother approached, her face beaming with a smile I remembered so well. "Ixchel, dear, you are here for a visit to learn something important. But your journey on Earth is not yet over." I looked at them, confused. "But what about the accident? I died, didn't I?" My Uncle Carlos put his hand on my shoulder. "You are between two worlds now, nephew. Your body on Earth is fighting to survive, and the doctors are doing their best to save you. But your soul is here with us for a moment." I was trying to process all of this. It was too much to take in at once. Part of me wanted to stay there in that place of peace and love with the people I had lost. But another part remembered Sophia, my life, the things I still wanted to do. But why am I here? I asked. If it's not my time, why did they bring me here? My father smiled gently. Because there is something you need to see, something you need to understand. You have an important mission, Ixchel, a mission only you can fulfill. Before I could ask any more questions, I noticed an even brighter light coming from one of the hall doors. It was a light so intense, so pure that I felt irresistibly drawn to it. My father noticed my gaze. Yes, there is someone who wants to talk to you. I started to walk towards the light, but my grandmother gently grabbed my arm. Remember, my dear, no matter what happens, the love we feel for you is eternal, and you can always find us in your heart. I nodded, feeling a deep emotion. I gave each of them one last hug, trying to remember every detail of that moment. So I took a deep breath and walked towards the bright light. As I got closer, I felt a powerful, yet gentle presence. It was as if all the love in the universe was concentrated in that one spot. And that's when I saw him. When I stepped into the light, I was enveloped by a feeling of love so deep, so intense, that it almost brought me to my knees. It was an unconditional love, a love that accepted every part of me, even the parts that I myself had difficulty accepting. And then, he was there, Jesus. Not how the paintings portray him, not how I imagined him. It was a presence of pure light, of pure love. His face was at once all faces and no specific face. His eyes seemed to contain all the wisdom of the universe. He smiled at me, and in that smile I saw the entire story of creation. I saw galaxies being born and dying. I saw the evolution of life on Earth. I saw the journey of humanity. And in the midst of it all, I saw my own life. Every moment, every choice, every joy, and every pain. Ixchel, he said, and his voice was like music. Welcome. I wanted to say something, anything, but words failed me. How do you talk to the creator of the universe? What do you say? He seemed to understand my confusion and placed his hand on my shoulder. At that touch, I felt a wave of peace invade me. You have questions, he said. It wasn't a question, but a statement. Finally, I found my voice. Why am I here? Why show me all this if it's not my time to stay? Jesus smiled again. Because you have important work to do, Ixchel, a mission only you can fulfill. What mission? I asked, feeling a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. Your mission is to live, he replied simply. To live fully, to love deeply, and to help others do the same. You have experienced a glimpse of divine love, Ixchel. Now your task is to bring that love back to the world. I frowned, confused. But how? I'm just an ordinary man, a father and engineer. How can I do something so great? Jesus laughed, a sound that seemed to make the entire universe vibrate with joy. Ixchel, don't you understand yet? There is nothing ordinary about you or any human being. Each of you is a unique expression of divine love, and it is in the little things, in the everyday gestures of kindness and compassion, that this love manifests itself more powerfully. He made a gesture, and suddenly I saw images of my life. I saw myself hugging Sophia, consoling a friend in difficulty, helping a stranger on the street. See, he said, every act of love, no matter how small it may seem, echoes for eternity. I felt tears in my eyes. It was all so simple and so profound at the same time. But remember, Jesus continued, his tone becoming more serious, the path will not be easy. There will be challenges, pain, moments of doubt. But you will never be alone. I will always be with you, as will all those you love. He then touched my forehead, and at that moment I saw a vision of the future. I saw a world in transformation. I saw crises and difficulties, but I also saw hope. I saw people coming together. I saw love triumphing over fear. That's what you're coming back to, he said, to be a light in this changing world. to remind people of who they truly are and the love that awaits them. I nodded, feeling a mixture of fear and determination. "I understand," he said, "and I'm ready." Jesus smiled one last time. "Always remember, Ixchel, you are loved, infinitely and eternally. Now go. Your daughter is waiting for you." And with those words, I felt myself being pulled back. The light began to fade, and I heard distant voices calling me. The transition back was quick and intense. One moment I was in the presence of Jesus, enveloped in divine light and love. The next I was being pulled back into my body with overwhelming force. The first thing I felt was pain. A sharp, pulsing pain that seemed to travel through every inch of my body. Then came the noise, beeping machines, urgent voices, the sound of medical equipment. I opened my eyes slowly, blinking against the bright light. I was in a hospital bed, surrounded by doctors and nurses who looked surprised and relieved at the same time. "He's awake," I heard someone exclaim. "It's a miracle." A doctor leaned over me, checking my vitals. "Mr. Montemayor, can you hear me? Do you know where you are?" I tried to speak, but my throat was dry and sore. I could only mutter, "Hospital. Accident." The doctor nodded, smiling. "That's right. You were in a serious motorcycle accident. You were in a coma for 3 days. Honestly, we didn't expect you to survive. Your injuries were very serious." 3 days? It felt like it had only been a few minutes since I was in that other place, in that reality beyond ours. In the days that followed, I underwent a series of tests and procedures. The doctors were perplexed by my quick recovery. Injuries that should have taken months to heal were healing in days. "I've never seen anything like it," commented one of the doctors during the round. "It's like your body has an accelerated healing mechanism." I knew it wasn't just my body that was healing. Something deep inside me had changed. The experience I had left indelible marks on my soul. Sophia's first visit was emotional. When she entered the room, her eyes full of tears, I felt a rush of love so intense, it almost took my breath away. I hugged her with all the strength I could muster, promising myself that I would never again take a single moment with her for granted. "Daddy, I thought I lost you," she sobbed against my chest. "Never, my love," I whispered, kissing the top of her head. "I will always be here for you." As I recovered, I began to reflect on everything I had experienced. How to tell people. Who would believe me? Most importantly, how could I fulfill the mission I was given? I decided to start slowly. I shared parts of my experience with Sophia, with my mother, with some close friends. Some people were skeptical, others fascinated. But what struck me most was how even those who didn't fully believe my story seemed to be touched by the love and peace I now carried with me. I realized that I didn't need to convince anyone about what had happened. My mission was not to preach or convert. It was simply living the love that I had experienced, sharing it through my actions, my words, my being. And so day by day I began my journey back to life. A life that now had a much deeper purpose than I could have ever imagined. In the months following my release from the hospital, I began to see the world with completely new eyes. Things that had once seemed so important, money, status, material possessions, now seemed insignificant compared to what I had experienced. My relationship with Sophia changed profoundly. Every moment with her became precious, an opportunity to share love and create meaningful memories. I started paying more attention to the little things, the sound of her laugh, the way her eyes lit up when she talked about something that excited her, the feeling of her hug. At work, my colleagues noticed the change. "You look different, Ixchel," my boss commented one day. "More at peace, I guess." I smiled. Let's just say I had a change of perspective. I started looking for ways to make my work more meaningful. I proposed projects that benefited the community. I insisted on more sustainable practices. I strived to create a more harmonious and collaborative work environment. But the most profound change was internal. The anxiety that used to consume me, the constant fear of the future, the feeling that I was never enough, all of this was replaced by a deep peace. Not that life has become perfect or easy. I still face challenges. I still had difficult days. But now I face them with new strength, a new perspective. I started meditating regularly, trying to reconnect with that sense of peace and love I experienced during my NDE. It wasn't always easy, but little by little I learned to find moments of stillness and connection, even amid the chaos of everyday life. My relationship with spirituality has also changed. I didn't become religious in the traditional sense, but I developed a deep appreciation for the mystery of life, for the interconnectedness of all things. I began to see the divine in everything and everyone, in a stranger's smile and sunsets, even in moments of difficulty and pain. One of the most important lessons I learned was about forgiveness. I realized that holding a grudge, anger, or resentment was like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. I started practicing forgiveness, not just of others, but of myself. It was a difficult but incredibly freeing process. I also started paying more attention to the coincidences and synchronicities in my life. Many times I found myself in the right place at the right time to help someone or receive help. It was like the universe was conspiring to put me where I needed to be. One day, while walking in the park with Sophia, she asked me, "Dad, do you think Mom is watching us from somewhere?" I felt my heart sink, but at the same time a wave of love and certainty invaded me. "I'm sure you do, darling," I replied. "And not just watching. She is with us, always. In the love we feel for each other, in the memories we share, in the beauty we see around us." Sophia smiled, her eyes shining with unshed tears. "I like to think so," she said softly. At that moment I felt a gentle breeze envelop us, carrying the scent of the park's flowers. And for a moment I was absolutely sure that Gabriella was there with us, smiling, hugging us with her eternal love. It was then that I realized my mission was not something grand or dramatic. It was simply that, being present, loving deeply, and helping others connect to the love and light that exists within them. And every day, with every small act of kindness, every moment of genuine connection, I was fulfilling that mission. 9. Sharing the message. As time passed, I felt a growing urge to share my experience with more people, not out of a desire for fame or recognition, but because I felt my story could bring comfort and hope to those who were going through difficult times. I started slowly, sharing in small support groups for people who had lost loved ones or were facing serious illnesses. At first I was nervous. How would people react? Would they think I was crazy? To my surprise, most people responded with openness and curiosity. Many cried when they heard about the unconditional love I experienced. Others shared their own stories of inexplicable experiences or moments of deep spiritual connection. One day after one of these meetings, an elderly woman approached me, tears in her eyes. "Thank you," she said, holding my hands. "I lost my husband 2 years ago and was lost in darkness. Your story gave me hope again." Moments like these have shown me the power of sharing our truth, even when it's difficult or scary. I realized that I didn't need to convince anyone of the reality of my experience. What was important was the impact she had on people, the way she opened their hearts to possibilities beyond what we can see or touch. Over time, I was invited to speak at larger events, spirituality conferences, hospital talks, even some local churches. He always made it clear that he was not there to convert anyone or to claim that he had all the answers. I was simply sharing my story and the lessons I learned. The most important message I've received, I used to say, is that love is the most powerful force in the universe. And that love isn't out there, somewhere far away. It's inside each of us, waiting to be recognized and shared. Sometimes I face skepticism, or even hostility. Some people accused me of making up the whole story, or of having hallucinated due to the medication. Others tried to fit my experience into their own religious or philosophical beliefs. I learned not to let these reactions shake me. I understood that each person was on their own journey, and that my story would touch those who were ready to hear it. One of the most rewarding moments was when I was invited to speak at a medical conference about NDEs. I was surprised to see how many healthcare professionals were open to considering the spiritual dimension of life and death. After my talk, a neurosurgeon came to talk to me. "You know," he said thoughtfully, "I've spent years studying the brain, trying to understand consciousness. But stories like yours make me think there's a lot more going on than we can explain with our current science." These words touched me deeply. I realized that my experience not only comforted people grieving or searching for spiritual meaning, but also challenged our understanding of reality, opening doors to new ways of thinking about life, death, and consciousness. As I shared my story, I noticed that I was changing and growing too. Each time I told about my experience, I seemed to discover new insights, new layers of meaning. It was as if the very act of sharing was deepening my understanding and connection to that transcendental experience. Sophia, now a teenager, sometimes accompanied me to these events. She became my biggest supporter, often helping me organize my thoughts or offering a new perspective. "You know, Dad," she told me one day, "your story changed my life too. It made me realize that there is so much more to life than we can see. It made me want to live in a way that really matters." His words filled me with emotion. I realized that by sharing my experience, I was not only fulfilling my mission, but also creating a legacy of love and hope for my daughter and everyone my story touched. And so, day after day, word for word, I continued to spread the message of love, hope, and connection that I had received. It wasn't always easy, but I knew it was exactly what I was supposed to be doing. Today, almost 3 years after my near-death experience, I reflect on how my life has changed. I'm not the same person I was before that motorcycle accident. I am more patient, more compassionate, more connected to my true self and to others around me. I continue working as an engineer, but now I see my work as a way to contribute to a better world. Every project is an opportunity to create something that benefits not only customers, but also the community and the environment. Sophia is about to go to college. Watching her grow into a strong, compassionate young woman is one of the greatest joys of my life. Our conversations about life, death, and what lies beyond are deep and meaningful. She has her own beliefs and doubts, and I respect that. The important thing is that we maintain an open and honest dialogue. I continue to share my story with anyone who will listen. It's no longer just about my near-death experience, but how this experience transformed my life, and how it can inspire others to live with more love and purpose. But not everything is perfect. I still face challenges and moments of doubt. Sometimes I find myself questioning whether all that really happened. In those moments, I close my eyes and reconnect with that feeling of unconditional love I experienced. It always brings me back to center. Looking to the future, I feel a mixture of anticipation and apprehension. The visions I had during my NDE about the challenges humanity will face are always on my mind. I see signs of these challenges manifesting themselves: climate change, global conflicts, economic crises. But I also see signs of hope, people coming together to make a difference, technological advances being used for good, a collective awakening to the importance of compassion and connection. I don't know exactly what the future holds, but I know that my role is to continue to be a beacon of love and hope, to continue reminding people, through my words and, more importantly, through my actions, that we are all part of something bigger, that we are all connected by bonds of love that transcend time and space. Sometimes when I look up at the starry sky at night, I feel a deep longing for that place of light and love that I once experienced. But then I remember Jesus' words, "Your mission is to live," and I understand that my place is here, now, living each moment fully, loving deeply, making a difference where I can. I don't know when my time will come to return to that wonderful place, but until then, I'm committed to living each day as if it were my last and my first, with gratitude, with love, with purpose. And to everyone reading or listening to my story, I leave this message. You are loved, infinitely and unconditionally. You have a unique and important purpose. No matter how difficult things may seem, There is always light at the end of the tunnel. Keep your heart open. Love deeply. Be kind to yourself and others. And always remember, life is a precious gift. Live it fully, with all your heart. Who knows? Maybe one day we will find ourselves in that place of light and love. Until then, let's make this world a better place, one act of kindness at a time. And so, I continue my journey, grateful for each day, each breath, each opportunity to love and grow. The path forward may be uncertain, but I know I am not alone. We are all together on this journey called life. And together, with love and compassion, we can create a bright future for us all.